What's going on, everybody? It's Rick Barrett back here on the Barrett Breakdown, a show where we cut through the noise, we drop the talking points, and we have real conversations that actually matter. Now, if this is your first time here, let me give you a little bit about myself. I'm not the kind to play it safe. I'm here to ask questions that most people avoid, and more importantly, I want to give my guests the space to speak their perspectives on them and to make sure that they get their answers flushed out so we can really dive in to the topics of the day: politics, culture, freedom, faith, whatever the case may be. This show, the Barrett Breakdown, is about honest, real talk, and it's with people who aren't afraid to shake up that narrative that everybody holds so close to them. So tonight's guest is somebody you're definitely going to want to hear from, Joe Enders of the Red Top Report. And we're going to dive into the topic of Gen Z, Catholicism, the conflict between them and the boomers, and of course, Nick Fuentes. And trust me, by the end of this conversation, you're going to look at all of these things a whole lot differently. So I want you to sit back, grab a smoke, grab a drink, whatever that is, coffee, maybe some eggnog, whatever you'd like tonight. And let's get into this episode of the Barrett Breakdown. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are tonight on this episode of the Barrett Breakdown. I am very excited to bring this guest on, Joe Enders of Red Top Report. I'm going to say some stuff while he's backstage and he can't say anything back to me, and he'll probably say it before he gets on. But earlier this year, Joe and I actually went back and forth. We had a really nice idea for a topic of a show we were going to do together because I find Joe to be a talent that is sorely underused in the media space. And, he's a new father and things are just happening for me. So I'm really happy to bring on Joe Enders of the Red Top Report and really just kind of have a conversation about a bunch of stuff, because I think more people need to hear his perspective. That is a Catholic, a young father, and a man that is really surveying the scene a lot better than a lot of other people. So without further ado, let us welcome to the Barrett Breakdown, Mr. Joe Enders. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, especially after that intro, man. That's cool. That's great. Yeah, no, it's I thought we made a pretty cool looking show too.
Yeah.
I remember I built us a layout and a logo and things like that. It's cool. And oh my gosh. every time I try to get something together in a normal amount of time, it always winds up being like every single unforeseen consequence that you could possibly imagine cascading down at the time. So,
yeah,
I still loved the idea. I still loved the idea for the show. It would have been a banger for sure. But thank you for having me on. There's a lot to talk about.
There is. There's a lot to talk about right now. And for me, the topic of Gen Z is something that I've really globbed onto, especially in the last couple of months, because it's an interesting set of circumstances that is taking over with Gen Z. And before we get into that, I want to give you a second to introduce yourself as far as Red Top Report and why you're a very good guest to bring on to talk about Gen Z and the issues we're going to tackle tonight.
Yeah, sure. I've been doing Red Top Report since 2022, 2023-ish. I can't remember exactly when. So this has been it's been a show. It's been through a lot too. It's been through the turmoil and collapse of Church Militant. It's been through the collapse of Truth Army that followed after. And every single time it winds up in my hands, it's still it's still going on. It's in my basement. I'm still able to come down here and do this. And by the protection of the Holy Spirit, you still see Joe Enders and you still see new episodes of Red Top Report. Even if you don't see him as often as you used to, they're still going up, or even a live stream, as much as I dread live streams. I'm able to still bring that content to everybody. And I've found that through X, utilizing my X account, I'm really able to share my opinions on current events. They're able to go up throughout the day. And it seems to be, before I had a very large audience of, just your basic run of the mill Catholic Gen Zers. And seems like as the timeline progressed, things started to change. I began to get the attention of Nick Fuentes and his friends, the Groypers, and they have opened my eyes, I have to say, just through their engagements, through the private conversations that I've been able to have with all of them. Obviously, we know there's some vicious trolls, man. They are some vicious trolls. Some of the best trolls I've ever met on the internet. And a lot of people said that, well, they did this, they did that. They're trolls. Yeah, that's what they do. But getting to know them privately, getting to know the faith questions that they're asking, getting to know the direction that they want to go with their lives. I have never been more impressed with a group of young men than I have with the Groypers. And forget anything they say online. I know these are some of these people shared with me who they actually are in their real lives. Some of these people have confided in me on very important questions and very important journeys that they've gone through personally themselves in their faith lives. If we're looking to capture a group of authentically American young Catholic men, the Groypers are the only ones that exist in a large enough swath to actually move the culture. So I am ride or die for the Groypers for that reason alone. Even if they weren't, of the best behavior, it wouldn't matter to me. None of it matters to me at all. I see what's going on behind the scenes. I see who these people are. I see what's in their hearts, and I see power. I see strength, and I see the future.
When it comes to the let's get into that right now. With the first thing, when you mention Fuentes or you mention his very sizable following, which you have to give him credit for, because he was not astroturfed. He didn't show up on Twitter one day with 20,000 followers like some people do, despite the fact that he has been canceled, just deplatformed all over the place. His following stays with him. The first thing you'll hear is, oh, Nick said this about this group, or Nick said this inflammatory remark, and you said his trolls or whatever the case may be will come after him. We also have to understand, as older folk, and I am the older folk of the two of us, that we were not around when we were growing up. We did not have 24/7 communication. We didn't have supercomputers in our hands. Believe you and me, if there was a supercomputer in my hand when I was 18, I'd probably be in jail. I'm not even.
Yeah, you're telling me.
I've done some things, and I always mention it to people that I'm going to have to account for it, the four final things. So even though I didn't, nobody saw it, he did. So the fact is that we are, and the Republican, and let's just look at it that way, the conservative movement, the Republican movement, the MAGA movement is not very forgiving when it comes to this sizable audience, and the sizable audience that turned out in droves for Trump in 2024. Let's not forget that. People are always there. There's always the woman question. Oh, we need to get women out to vote. And yes, I get it. The more votes, the better. But when men actually come out and they make their voices heard, they make absolutely massive impacts, and they did. And they've been tossed out like a woman you get from the red light district after the election. They were like, thanks for the vote. Boom. Now go back and shut your face and don't express yourself. Don't have any contention. And we'll get into the issues in a little bit that they're contentious about. You just stay there and be thankful that, we're allowing you into our club.
Right. And when you look at a lot of these young men, you'll find that a lot of them are athletes. A lot of them are gamers. A lot of them are lifters, whatever they might be. There's a lot of lifters that watch Nick because they're constantly pestering him about going to the gym. That's how you know these are real lifters that are following him. And it drives them nuts. And so you have these gym bros, you have these athletes, you have these gamers. What do all three of those things have in common? They're all authentically male spaces.
Yeah.
So, and this is something that I've been really trying to hammer the head in on, and that's essentially the origin of this conflict between the boomer gatekeeping guard or some of the soy boy millennial guard too. I mean, there's kind of a little bit of both going on. If you're talking about
We
the
could even say
Babylon
that's
Bee
like
folks.
the old school neocon, like
I mean,
boomer guard, like that
so
old. They what I
it's
mean
a
is like
mix,
they
right? It's
consider
some of
themselves
them.
like the Reaganites, like people who still
Yes.
like Reagan and like that old school conservative idea. Let's say that.
You know what? I would go so far as to say just conservatives.
Yeah,
Nick Fuentes is not a conservative. I'm not a conservative. I
I'm
doubt
not
you're
either.
even. I was gonna say you're not a conservative either, Rick.
Nope.
So like when I look at that, it's like we're not conservatives. We're reactionaries.
Yeah.
That's what we are. I rise myself to that level because, and I've told people this time and time and time again. When you have a system, and our system is a constitutional republic in the United States. We have bureaucracies that are organized within our executive branch. We have a Supreme Court to tell us what the Constitution says. All of these systems and a legislation to bring forth laws. We have all these systems in place in order to bring about the common good for the American people. Okay. So we have the left, who is entirely disinterested in the common good of the people, but is actually interested in tearing down the institutions that currently exist. And in tearing down those institutions that currently exist, they want to build back up new institutions that reflect their values. And those values will be, communism, socialism, neoliberalism, whatever. That's the whole intersectional alliance.
Mm-hmm.
It's all different forms of liberalism, in other words.
Yeah.
And I'm talking classical. I'm not talking about, liberal, libtard, liberal. I'm not saying that.
Mm-hmm.
And when that is the other side, you're no longer vying for preservation of the system, which is the essence of what conservatism was to preserve the American system, to preserve the Constitution, to preserve all of those things. I am not trying to preserve that anymore. I don't care what I have to do, as long as it's licit morally within the system. I'm perfectly happy undermining it. I'm perfectly happy breaking the rules because I know that I'm in a battle I'm vying for power within the system that is going to be destroyed one way or another and replaced with something different. So when I'm given no choice, when I know that my system does not work with the people that exist, when I know that the system does not represent me, that it does not represent my people, that there are foreign interests that eclipse my interests, whatever those things might be, we find ourselves in a very, very unique position where the system being preserved is completely impossible. It is inevitable. It is an inevitability that people will have to change the system in order to suit the conditions that we deal with today. And you have one side vying for power and you have one side trying to preserve the system. That's not how it works. We need two sides that are vying for power. And that's what a reactionary is. We aren't radicals. We aren't trying to bring in radical ideas. We're not trying to fundamentally change the nature of the human person. We're not trying to fundamentally change the nature of God. We're not trying to fundamentally change any of those things. We are reactionaries. We are confronted with radicalism and are reacting in a power struggle to the radicalism. That is what a reactionary is. That is what it is at its essence. And so what the conservatives don't seem to realize is like, why don't these guys want to preserve the system? Why are they just trying to burn it all down?
You
We're
could
not
go ahead. No, finish your point. Finish your point.
We're not trying. They're trying to burn it all down. They don't care about this value. They don't care about this principle. They don't care about those things because they're platitudinous. They're platitudes. They're not objectively good or objectively evil principles. And so what we're trying to do is move the Overton window in a direction that allows us to take power over the United States of America before our enemies do and use it to imprison us, persecute us, or kill us.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
I think that's a very good answer. And for some people who may be shocked at hearing this, if you're of an older generation, or even if I used to call them Sally the soccer mom and Frankie the football fan, the people that don't pay attention to politics. They show up every 4 years, they cast a ballot and they go away. What do you mean? Because we're told we're in this democracy and all these other kinds of things. And no, what you have been in, and it's really accelerated, I would say, since 2012 or 2008 with Obama, his first term. The back and forth of you're in power, my party's in power, you are to be punished. Okay, well, we need to get a guy in our side to get in power so we can punish them. And it's really escalated to that where we saw the lawfare against Trump, and we've seen really an all-out assault on anything that does not align with big government, the Leviathan, and the negative aspects.
Pre 2012 Obama is
Mhm.
unacceptable. Pre
Mhm.
2012 Obama will get you uh sorry, pre 2012 Obama will get you utterly canceled. You
Yeah.
cannot exist in civil society as a Bush conservative. You
Nope.
can't exist in society as and so that's why the young people are saying no. And what the response is that the baby boomers are resorting to, mind you, very hypocritical tactics to shut them up, to shut them down, to root out who is the reactionary and who is the obedient conservative within the movement, and trying to get rid of them. That's what this whole clash between Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, Mark Levin, and Randy Fine, and all of the acolytes on either side of that battle is occurring right now, because the baby boomers ultimately want to preserve constitutional conservatism, and nobody that's under 35 is particularly concerned with constitutional conservatism. They're concerned with their ability to buy a home, their ability to buy a family, and their ability not to wind up dead in the street like Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, it's funny. The only people that are interested in conserving that conservative Republican idea that you were talking about, they all exist in DC, and
Right.
they have their DC, and then they have their minions either on alternative media or whatever the case may be, whether it's the Daily Wire or the Blaze or whatever you want to call it, to try and keep people in line. Which is why when Tucker kind of struck out on his own, remember Tucker was a darling of the right when he was on Fox News.
Oh, I know. He was number one.
His was must appointment. Just the first 10 minutes of his show was must appointment watching for everybody. There were entire shows that were dedicated to breaking down his monologues. They were just that fire. And then as soon as he struck out and just started asking basic questions, and it started really the cracks. I would say, I don't know if we can go back and forth on this. The cracks really started for me to show with the Iran conflict. Because I was one of the people that was screaming out, and two things, and respond to the Tucker thing, and then how that led into probably the dumbest thing that the Trump administration and the media people have come up with, which is this panicking label that they tried to make cool, like fetch. You're trying to make fetch happen here. They're like, oh, look at these panicins, man. You want to talk about panicins, and every time, like somebody like Will Chamberlain, who I've just been absolutely blasting every time they start to say panic, and I'm like, yeah, why are we panicking? Let's take a look at some of the things that were promised to people that are not in the bubble, right? What about the Epstein list? What about the fact that we had a guy from Al Qaeda come to the White House and shake hands with Trump? What about Trump ending the Ukraine Russia conflict in 24 hours? What about the J6ers? What about the fact that there has been an unhealthy obsession with Israel, whether it's Ted Cruz, whether it's AIPAC, whether it's the fact that now Marjorie Taylor Greene is getting booted out of the Republican Party for any of these things. The $40 billion bailout for Argentina's meat, while we are struggling to help farmers here. 15-year car loans. I don't even have a car my car's 15 years old, but I wouldn't have had a 15-year car loan on it. The 600 H-1Bs, the Netanyahu, 50 or more, all of these things are coming out. And these are the subjects, Joe, that Gen Z is looking at and going, we have no shot when you put these things up. And Trump and all these people are talking about how the economy is better. How is that the case? Food is getting more expensive. All of these things are getting more expensive. And I know we're kind of jumping around here. And the fact that these kids who were told to go to college and do all these other things, they're coming out of college, they got no shot, because all of their jobs, every single one of their jobs is being taken by some kind of foreigner who is being brought in for slave wages to work these entry jobs that this generation was promised. When I was coming out of college, I know, folks, old man speak, there were at least entry-level jobs and things I could go in to get my feet wet. Call centers weren't great, but you can, when you're 23, you could actually get an apartment, get some stuff together on that wage. It was a good way to build job experience. None of that exists anymore. The world we grew up in, the world I grew up in 10 years has just been completely gone. And yet these boomers, they want to tell these kids, I was able to do it. You have no idea. We had tough too. We had Jimmy Carter's economy and 9% unemployment. And then they just don't, the value of the dollar, what you could buy for $1 in 1980, you'd have to spend $32 today for that same $1. They don't get that. The fact when they talk about 9% unemployment, well, you weren't fighting with 600,000 Chinese students and who knows how many H-1B visas. And so we're looking at this now, and there's such a disconnect because they want to call anybody that mentioned this, and it started with the Iran conflict. And I just vomited all over a bunch of stuff here, Joe. So I'll bring it back to that. The cracks began with the Iran conflict because it showed our foreign policy was dominated by one specific country. No matter what you think, they started a war. They ran to the United States and said, you have to finish it for us. No other country on earth gets to do that. Japan doesn't get to do that. Nobody gets to do that. Ukraine hasn't been able to do that. And then secondly, they're trying to push this group down by calling them panicans. And when you should be embracing their concerns and trying to fix them.
Well, and I call them planikins. The other ones, that's what they are. They trust the plan, trust the plan, trust the plan. And I was like, no. And first of all, Trump doesn't respect you. Anybody using the term panikins in aid of what he's saying, he does not respect you. Well, and Trump understands this himself, which is, why we heard Trump bring up Nick Fuentes like he's on a first name basis with him, calling him Nick, not calling him Fuentes like his adversaries like to call him. Mm-hmm. And so actually they mispronounce his name. You'll get Fuentes. It's like I know what you're doing. You're purposely like messing it up. It's Fuentes. But this is the problem. This is the problem. And it didn't start, mind you, with the Iran conflict. It was just laid bare with the Iran conflict. Yeah. I've been covering this for a while. I covered this back when he was running his campaign, when he was talking about stapling green cards to diplomas.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? What are we doing here? There was massive backlash. What I should say, what America First, which I would say Tucker Carlson, and these aren't people necessarily. I like Tucker Carlson. I like Nick Fuentes. I like both of them a lot. There are other people in that camp that I'm kind of iffy on. Like they're on my side. Is it
Candace?
It's Candace. I don't. First of all, I don't listen to women on camera. Like I just don't. It's not my thing. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. And I don't necessarily think they should be online to begin with. So that's just my personal perspective. And so, yeah, I don't like Candace Owens. I don't like how she does journalism either. But, I don't care for Ian Carroll as much either. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I do like Dave Smith. I think Dave Smith is relatively intelligent. So, there is that whole cohort over there, those people. And then you have the other cohort on the other side. But these people have been using leverage. They've been playing the art of the deal with Donald Trump through their amassed followings' voices. And they've been using social media as the medium to do that. And that's why you see these comments getting walked back. That's why there is. And all it does is aid the people yelling panic and saying, see, you just had to trust the plan. And I was like, no, we're part of the plan, actually. You stupid planikin. We're part of the plan. You need to trust the plan when I'm counter-signaling Donald Trump, actually. Because we're trying to make this country better. We're trying to make America first. When Trump puts out an idea like bringing 600,000 Chinese people here on student visas, he's testing the waters. He's putting that idea out there to see how the American public reacts to it, to see how his base reacts to it. Exactly.
He's big on the trial balloons.
Exactly. He's putting out trial balloons, and we need to pop the bad ideas because that's what he wants us to do that.
I will say Trump has always been very pragmatic.
Yes.
And he wants to be liked by his base. So if his base is going to, and he's very, and I don't know if we made a joke off before the show, but maybe it's Barron, maybe it's somebody in there that's like, okay, this traffic is not working on this specific subject. I know you got your guys out there trying to quell it, but whether it was the H-1B thing back in Christmas of like last year where Vivek and Elon got dragged for it, or all these, there's always a reaction to it.
Right. And Trump listens to the reaction. This is actually why he's a better president than we've had in many administrations. There is a sense at which he listens to the people, specifically his people, his loyal supporters, and it's not disloyalty to say that you don't like something that he's doing.
No.
It's you wanting him to succeed. I want you to succeed, Donald Trump, as one of our greatest presidents in American history. Don't do this stupid Chinese students plan. Don't do these H-1Bs. Don't staple green cards to diplomas. Don't say we want the Enriques and Jamals like Susie Wiles did back in the early back during the campaign. Don't say things like that.
Yeah.
America is a Western European Christian nation. That's what it was founded to be. That's what it was intended to be. That's what we are at our core. That's our identity as Americans. That doesn't mean that there isn't people with different identities that are also Americans, but that's the core of who we are. And so with that being the core of who we are, to even imply in any way that we're comfortable with surrendering that dominance of the party over to some other group is insane to me. And a lot of people take it that way. They're like, wait, what happened to the forgotten man?
Yeah.
What happened to the whole point of what MAGA was, making America great again, making America great for the majority of people in this country, the people that put in the sweat and tears, the people that built the infrastructure up, the people that made this country great, and their descendants. We need to honor the American people. We need to honor them. We need to have policies in place that uplift that identity. And that was what I thought Make America Great Again was. It was a very nationalistic movement. It wasn't all about restoring the Constitution and lowering your taxes and doing that. No, it was about recapturing a country that is broken. That's the essence of MAGA. That's what it meant at the time. And that's why it was almost interchangeable with America First. But now we see all these other elements getting involved. These people like Mark Levin and Ted Cruz and Ben Shapiro. And you see all these people getting involved. It's like none of these people supported you.
No.
Not until you were already there.
Or not until it served their interest.
Exactly.
Until they could actually get that. Let me ask this as not a bit of a pushback, but a bit of a nice addition to it. So somebody would counter, and I agree that, you know, I have lineage tracing all the way back up to the signing of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. The core in the history of these United States is a European-centric core because that's who came here. There's nothing racist in saying that.
No.
But there is the problem, Joe, that we are not replacing population. We are in an absolutely dramatic decline. So in order to keep a capitalist system, right? We're talking about just a basic capitalist system that the powers and be want to keep. You need people. And so that's where that's where the friction comes in, where, well, if you guys were actually replacing, now, of course, the reason there is because half of the female population, the American population of females went to college, got indoctrinated, and now they're all girl bosses. That's a huge issue that won't get fixed anytime soon, especially with Gen Zers, which is terrible. But the powers that be, the political people are looking at, well, if we don't replace the population, not like white replacement theory, but like, hey, we don't have enough people to run these systems. So maybe that's one of the reasons they're thinking about, well, we got to bring people in or else the system cannot sustain itself.
And that's the essence of the problem. I'm actually like, you hear the word meritocracy a lot. That's how they justify mass legal immigration. And we're looking at what's afflicting Europe. You think that's illegal immigration?
No,
that's all legal. So all you're saying is, well, we have a problem with the completely insane thing that no other country would ever have done in their lives, which is illegal immigration. But we're totally okay with all the nonsense that's happening in Europe right now while they're getting taken over by Islam legally. And that's ridiculous. You can be against both. And not only can you be against both, you should be against both. I always scoff at the Europeans who are complaining about all this diversity is not this. Look at this. We have a country that's 14%. We have a country that's 14% Muslim now. And I was like, come to the U.S.
Yeah.
See what we have to deal with. We're at 57% white European. And if you threw in blacks, we're only a 67% heritage American country.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very... we're at this crossroads right now because they are bringing in these H-1Bs, and I've always been of the mindset I don't really care who you are, if you're a Christian or a Catholic, I don't really care, because at the base, at the core, you're going to share the same values of the universal church, which the universal church is the backbone of any successful government, right? If you believe in those tenets, you do have the foundation of a successful government. The issue is that these groups are being brought in, and their value systems. Let's just take the most popular one, India, right? Indians, they have, and just as a matter of fact, they have a caste system in their country, and they have imported many of those facets here, and it doesn't comply with what we have here. There is no caste system. I mean, yes, like there was indentured servants and stuff like that. I get it, but eventually you could get out and you could actually make your way for future generations.
We have a meritocracy hierarchy in the United States
Yeah,
of America,
exactly.
and the reason that the meritocracy hierarchy needs to be broken down is because it's fundamentally anti-family. And
Oh,
I've banged this drum quite a bit on the meritocracy angle of things. I'm not for meritocracy. I don't think that our society should only reward merit that they bring to the table on specific issues. Because you think about it this way: what is a nation but your extended family? Well, let's say that the government is mom and dad, and you, the people, are its children. Let's apply this. Meritocracy. Somebody who is not your kid is actually more qualified and able to get you, the parents, more than the kids are willing to get you. So you cast your kids aside and replace them with a brown kid because you know he was abused and is willing to do more with you because he was abused. That's not a system that's functional. That's not a system that's conducive with Catholic morality. It's not the Catholic Church teaches that the family is the first cell of civilization. But that's what our civilization's doing. It's throwing its kids to the wolves because they did a bad job raising them. No, what happens when you do a bad job raising a group of people, and there's problems with them, as the boomers love to allege about Gen Z, what do? You invest in them. You take extra time. You deal with the problem that you created. You don't just throw your children out in the street to be eaten by wolves and bring in a brown kid to do it for you. And that's essentially what the boomers on a societal level have done to Generation Z. So when you look at it from that perspective, it's like, no, meritocracy is a load of BS. It's a cover word for I don't want to help my kids, which is the mantra of baby boomers. It is their mantra.
Yeah, they were and if you're a baby boomer, you can leave a comment below, but you can't deny the fact that that generation was handed the cleanest, most prosperous, safest country, union of states ever in the history of the world.
Let me give you some statistics.
Drop them.
In order to buy, when you could, in 1965, when boomers were, the first group of boomers were turning 20 years old, you were able to buy a house. The median age of home ownership in 1960, actually, let's go with that. The median age of first home buyer it was 23 years old. By 1965, when Hart-Celler came through, when we started moving more in the direction towards immigration, it rose between 30 and 31. This is the decade where we stopped caring about our children. This is when the baby boomers were coming into their own, but they were able to buy a house, and it cost literally if you adjust for inflation, a house was 2.2 times more or less expensive back then than it is today.
I think I've rattled this statistic off, and if I did it earlier on the show, forgive me. If you do, just look at $1 in 1980 versus if you wanted to get as much buying power for that dollar in 2025 money, it's $32 for $1, and that is unacceptable to lay down on a generation of people, especially when you deny them the God-given grace of work. Right? We are built to work. We are designed to work, which is the whole AI thing, and the pod and the bugs, which is a whole other level of the catastrophe that's coming down the pipe. But the fact is, you were handed this clean, this well-run, safe society, and through usury, let's just call it a usury and greed, they have their, you were talking about home ownership. Right now, the median age of home ownership is 40.
Yeah.
Right. Your first house, somebody's first house is 40. That is unattainable. And that is not fair. If you want to use the word fair, it's not just, it's not right.
How do you have a family How do you practice Catholic birth control, which is none? How do you practice Catholic birth control when you can't afford a house until you're 40 years old? Can you not start having kids until you're 40? That is a denial of human dignity.
Mm-hmm.
And this
It
is
is.
something that nobody wants. Nobody seems to want to bring up, not at an Episcopal level, not at a government level, not at a societal level. The only people yelling about it are the young people, and all they're getting is browbeaten for it. And in many cases, when they do have jobs, when they're just engaging in like I was talking about before, authentically male spaces, they're grabbed by the scruff of their neck and thrown out the door.
Mm. Or
So,
they're, or we could even say something worse. Modernity is trying to inject themselves into these spaces. Gamergate being the most popular for example
well,
of
that's why
gamer
this
and gaming
happens. Yeah.
culture, you know,
This
and
happens because the modernity was injected into all of the spaces because it's not right to not have your female coworker in with the group of the guy coworkers, things like so you bring them in and then you're walking on eggshells all the time, and then eventually you get a little too comfortable, say something a little too comfortable, and you wind up in an HR office and losing your job.
yeah, HR was probably, and then of course HR being regular, being streamlined, mainlined into corporations, giving a nanny state within your corporation approval to micromanage your life. And then
Your
you have the Me
personal
Too.
life, not your
Yeah,
work life, mind you.
all of it. That's what I mean. Your life.
Yeah.
When I just said your life, I'm not talking about, there is no work-life balance.
Yep.
Especially now with social media and all these things where you can be monitored for these things. Oh, did you make this post last night? It's like, well, yeah, was I on the clock? Then it doesn't matter if I made this post or not. And so it is a very, very difficult issue for older generations to even admit. And you can see in their responses, Joel, how angry they are when you bring this up. They say, you guys, you're just a bunch of whiners and we had it
Yeah.
tough too, and blah blah blah. It's like, listen, they don't even want to blame you. They're not even blaming. They're just like, help us.
Yeah.
Help us. And which is why they gravitated towards somebody like Trump, who said, I'm gonna try and bring manufacturing jobs back. I'm gonna try and
Yeah.
prioritize, like you were saying, American people first.
Yeah. No foreign interests.
Yeah. And I think and when people say, well, that's because you're anti-Israel. No, I don't care about Ukraine. I don't care about the Middle East. I don't care about Venezuela. I don't care about any of these things. I'd rather just focus on what's happening here. You can try to call me an isolationist as much as you want, but I'm more of an isolationist than I guess I would even want to admit.
It's funny. I'm actually I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit here. Not quite, not
Please
entirely, but
do. Please do.
I am anti-Israel. Specifically,
Mm.
I would say that openly. Why? Because and yeah, I'm against helping Ukraine too, but I'm not anti the well-being of the Ukrainian system and the Ukrainian people and whatever necessarily. I don't that is something that isn't important to me. But the destabilization of the Israeli power structure is incredibly important to me because that Israeli power structure controls my government.
Okay, I'm
So
gonna give you the chance for people who don't understand what you're talking about when you say the Israeli power structure and they think you're just going off on some kind of anti-Semitic riff. Can you
sure.
explain to the person who's just hearing this for the first time? Like I said here on the Barrett Breakdown, I want to give you the space to
Yes.
really show people what you're talking about, and then tell them you find places they can look it up on their own and so forth for that.
Well, the way that I think about it is there are, and this isn't every single Jewish person. Like, I mean, like if I go to a Jewish deli in New York City, I'm having a great time. I probably met a really nice Jewish person. I enjoyed every bit of fun that I got to have while I was there. And they do make some of the best sandwiches. I'm Italian. I'm a little biased on the Italian delis, but they're definitely number 2 on my list. I love Jewish food. It's very good. And those loaded pastrami sandwiches, I absolutely love them. I've met a lot of Jewish people in my life that have been very kind, that have been very generous to me, and all of those things. What I'm talking about is the organization of Jewish oligarchs, be they right wing or be they left wing. I don't know if they work together with one another. I have no way of saying any of those things. I'm not even necessarily saying that it's the cabal, to use the famous anti-Semitic dog whistle that they like to freak out about. But I can say that between right wing Jews and between left wing Jews, there is some sort of synergy. The left-wing Jews in the United States are all about helping the migrant and helping the refugee and making sure that there is free movement of peoples all across the world in order to uplift them, provide them with housing, shelter, food, anything they need to uplift the third world. It's very altruistic. It's very good. Well, the synergy comes in when you look at the right-wing Jews who actively promote wars that destabilize the countries that surround Israel and empty them into Europe and the United States.
Okay.
I don't know if that's demonically done and they're completely unaware of it. I don't know if there is some cabal. I'm not claiming that there is, but I do know that that's what's happening. Left-wing Jews like George Soros and his ilk and his friends are advocating an open society. And Netanyahu is advocating destabilizing the Middle East, creating refugee crises for the free movement of peoples out of those countries and into mine. That is happening. There's no way to say that isn't happening because we went to war with pretty much every single one of Israel's neighbors. We destabilized Egypt. We destabilized Libya. We destabilized Lebanon. We destabilized Iraq. We destabilized Syria. We destabilized Syria despite the leader protecting Christians.
I mean, if people really don't realize that, and this is like Saddam also was
protected Christians,
protecting Christians, because in those societies, our Western democracy values, whatever you want to call them, the average person cannot wrap around that strong men are needed in those countries because of the fact that they've been at each other's throats since the beginning of time, or ever since Muhammad showed up there and converted them all to different sects of Islam, because they're constantly fighting for power in those places. So it is interesting in that regard. So if you want to continue.
And this goes to the dual loyalty question. The problem with Jews is that they like to say, well, we're a religious group or we're an ethnic group. And it's like, well, you're both. You're an ethno-religious group and you identify as such. The two are inseparable from one another. So you can't say they're just a religion. They're an ethno-religion. And that's a different animal than religion. They actually cannot compare themselves to a Catholic or a Muslim. They can't, because it's an ethno-religion. So, and obviously there's a really convoluted way that you can convert to Judaism, but it's not sought out, it's not desired, and you're looked down upon for the rest of your life after you do by other Jews. The culture of Talmudic Judaism, we're not talking about the Old Testament, of Talmudic Judaism, is that Jews themselves by their blood are the sons of Abraham and therefore are the carriers of the Old Covenant. We don't believe that. We believe that Jesus came. We believed that he fulfilled the Old Covenant and elevated a new covenant that was supernatural as opposed to natural, rising up the supernatural true Israel, which is the Catholic Church and the body of Christ, and create and extending his chosen people to all of the people who choose to be baptized. And that was offered first to the Jews because of their fidelity to God. Because that's Catholicism. Yeah. That's what we believe. They believe that it's by their blood, even though the Bible in the Old Testament many times proves that it isn't about their blood. Like, for example, when you see Ted Cruz interviewing Tucker Carlson interviewing Ted Cruz, what does he say? Those who I'm a Bible believer, and that's why I support Israel. The Bible says that those who bless Israel will be blessed. No, it doesn't. And he's quoting Genesis. It says those who bless Abraham's children will be. He says this to Abraham, I should say. Those who bless your children will be blessed, Abraham. Me and you are the children of Abraham. Do Jews have more descendants than there are stars in the sky, or do Catholics?
Well, if you went by the numbers, it would be Catholics. I think it's like 1.8 billion.
Exactly. We are the largest religion in the world. I don't see that ever changing, by the way. And that's what people don't want. That's what Jews don't want to admit to themselves, that they're not special based on their ethnicity. They're part of this religious group. And not only are they part of this religious group, they believe that their blood is so sacred within that they could not be a believing Jew in any tenet of the religion, but still be a Jew. That's not and that's the case. You can be an atheist Jew. That's a common statement. They'll tell you this. This is that you are an atheist Jew. And not only are they are until recently a nationless people. They're a diaspora people. They live because it's only been since 1948. They live in a perpetual mindset of wandering. They aren't part of the countries that they immigrate to. They are part of the Jewish ethnicity when they go to another country. And I've had rabbis tell me this in very vulnerable moment on my podcast. They've said to me, no, the Jew is an immigrant no matter where he is.
Well, if you notice, I've had the pleasure of going to Rome a couple times. And when you go there, when the first time you go, you take like the little golf cart tours and all these other places. There is a Jewish ghetto within Rome. There is, and you notice in every country there is. And when I say ghetto, folks, I'm not trying to use it in the derogatory
they're not rappers.
Country. A ghetto was essentially, if you take it back to when New York or back when we were max immigration, and there would be an Italian ghetto, an Irish ghetto, whatever. A ghetto is just a group of people in one place. That's all. Chinatown would be a ghetto, and so forth. So that's what I mean when I say ghetto, folks. And so yes, you find that they have their very specific places that they live when they go to a different country,
and they are never. But this is the key: they are never tied by the bonds of traditional assimilation, like Catholics who moved to the United States would be, or Italians or Irish. And that could be race, that could be language, that could be religion. It could be any of those things. Jews are willing to separate themselves on religion and ethnicity in every single case and remain that way because that is so intrinsic to their identity. And because of that, no matter where they go, they don't have full loyalty to the country in which they're residing in. Their full loyalty lies with Jews. And that's where this dual loyalty question, it's always in their self-interest as somebody who is known to be and who believes themselves to be a persecuted minority in the global community. It is always their duty to stand up for Jews before they stand up for their nation, no matter where they are in the world. And this is why Israel is so protected, because they don't want another Holocaust to happen or something like that where they have nowhere to run. So they're very, very, very pro-Israel. They're very, very pro-Israel, especially on the conservative end of Judaism, especially on the religion end of Judaism. They believe that they will be eradicated if there's no Israel. And then there's the radical side with the Hasids and the Haredis, Jewish people that are anti-Israel because they believe that that's not the kingdom that was promised to them by God. They said that doesn't exist until Jesus or until the Messiah comes, which is Jesus, but they'll learn that later. And then you have the atheist Jews that don't believe in anything at all, and they believe that they have a right to the country that they're living in, but still a loyalty to the ethnicity that is Jews. So they're viciously against what they purport to be anti-Semitism, which is totally misdefined by our State Department. And their loyalties are unfortunately split. So what I'm getting at with this long-winded explanation is that it's always in their interest to push diversity. It's always in their interest to push against identity movements, because if there's mass identity movements, whether it be Catholic identity, Christian identity, Protestant identity, Islamic identity, that puts Jews' lives in danger, and their chief duty is to other Jews. So they've always have these strong pushes for pluralism, and that means pluralism in values. And if they want to operate off of a system of what they say is equality, well, the only way for equality is if you have equality of all value systems and ideas, because Jews' value system is radically different from Christians and, and Muslims and Hindus and so on and so forth. So they have
Joe,
to
I thought we were based on Judeo-Christian values.
Well, yeah, that's just a fake term that didn't even start appearing until the Schofield Bible came into existence. This is a heresy that comes from dual covenant theology. The belief that Talmudic Judaism wasn't a fundamental departure from the Judaism of the Old Testament pre 70 AD when Titus destroyed the temple. And obviously there was times in the Old Testament when they didn't have a temple too, but there was always the hope that it would return, and it was always within a few hundred years, not 2,000. It's very clear that 70 years after Christ resurrected from the dead, every aspect of the Jewish religion was destroyed. The sacrifice, the priesthood. The only thing that was left over was their loose understanding of the Torah and the Talmud, which some parts of the Talmud are obviously probably correct, but a lot of it is blasphemous. A lot of it is incorrect, and a lot of it a lot of it inspires the values of anti-Christian sentiment, and it's a false religion. It's not a true religion. There are true aspects in it, insofar as they're rooted in the Old Testament, insofar as they're rooted in actual biblical truth, but they don't even read the same Old Testament that we read. They use what they call the Hebrew Bible, which a lot of evangelicals latched onto. What they essentially did was they ripped the authority away from the church, which said that the Septuagint, which was what Jews used as a chief text for Judaism at the time, and they did it all in Hebrew, and they called it the Masoretic text. The Masoretic text was not completed until 800 years after the Septuagint was already completed. Septuagint's written in ancient Greek, and they draw from that, and they changed little things all throughout it to justify the Jewish religion. A great example is their view of the construction of the family and the relationship between husband and wife. You have a passage in Genesis where they refer to the woman as a helpmate, I believe is the word that the Bible uses when translated into English. Well, that draws from the Septuagint, which the ancient Greek word, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it implies under the man, a subordinate to the man. So the man is the head. There is a hierarchy involved, as opposed to the Masoretics, who wrote in the words ezer kenegdo, which is Hebrew for like a partner, a
co-head almost.
Yeah, co-head. And so their construction of the family, their eschatology of the family is all wrong, and it's not even in union with the 800-year older version of the Old Testament, which is the Septuagint.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Because
that's a values thing. That is a core values thing about the nature of the first cell of civilization, the family. So when you have deep-seated problems like that, their values are fundamentally different. This is a fundamental difference between Christianity and Judaism, is how we construct civilization. And yet they want to say that our country itself, our civilization, is Judeo-Christian. It can't be true if what I just said about the Masoretic text versus Septuagint is true.
And that's it. It is fascinating when you actually take into a deep dive on that, because as we said at the beginning of this, when people talk about this, the cabal or any of these other kinds of things, they have these really kind of boastful or just completely
it's not to say there aren't Jewish groups that lobby, though. Yeah, there are. And they're rich and they operate like mafias, but they're not. It's not every Jew that's involved in every single group.
No, I think that's the big thing, is they try to lump it into, well, you hate Jewish people. No, I don't. And I don't think the average person that's starting to peek their head up, which is making the Jewish lobby groups.
We're observing Jewish tactics. That's
we
it.
are.
And the church has done that its entire history. Read the church fathers, read Aquinas, read the Fourth Lateran Council. The Fourth Lateran Council would not let barred Jews from holding public office. And these are all eschatological problems. That there's reasons that they said those things. They had what's his name? The man who gave Gregory the Ninth the Talmud, translated it for him and showed him all the blasphemies. I forget his name.
I don't even know who it is. So
he was a Jewish convert. He was a Jew.
Can't help you.
He was a Jew that converted to Catholicism and said, you need to know what's in this Talmud because it's blasphemous, and they're spreading it and selling it all over Christendom. And it was so blasphemous. I'm not going to say the things that are said on there, but you've heard him before.
Yeah.
If
you've heard that, you're aware.
Yeah. He had the Talmuds burned, and he gave the Jews a certain amount of time to exit Rome.
Which is very, very, it's in a stark contrast. And that's why I'm glad Joe is here to talk about these things, because people will go with the over exaggerated, well, you just hate all Jews. But the fact is, more people are peeking their head up, because the politics of our age right now are making it a focal point, whether it's the foreign policy issue, whether it's the APAC issue, whether it's just the fact, like you said, where you had Ted Cruz going out of his way to say during the Tucker Carlson interview, when I first ran for Senate, I was going to be the most pro-Israel senator, and I'm a
I
Texan.
believe
I'm
in the
going.
Bible.
I'm like, no, you need to be pro-Texan, homie. And it's just, there was reports today that he's talking about, prepping a 2028 presidential run, to which everybody said, of where? Israel? Because he's got no shot on God's green earth of anywhere around here, because he's made it a point.
Right.
And over and over and over again, I think people are just, like you said at the beginning, before explaining that people are just wary of any foreign interference within our government. Like,
in a way, Jews are too.
When does this cease to being
Right.
a representative republic? Because we don't really have a say. Our say is being canceled out by lobbying groups. Many people feel like.
Well, when foreign interest groups and lobbyists concerns become priority over that of the people, they are no longer serving the common good, which is the Catholic purpose of government.
So, and you could even extend this out. Yes, we are talking about the Jewish lobby, but you could talk about the pharmaceutical lobby,
right? The agricultural lobby,
any of those lobbies. The Chinese lobby. There's a huge Chinese lobby, and the fact is, one of the backdoor ways that China exerts influence in these United States is through the educational lobby, in particular the college institutions, which is another reason why everybody was flipping out when Trump was talking about his 600,000, because it's like you're just feeding the same system that is rigged against you. And so whether it's the Jewish lobby or the Chinese, it feels like the American voice, which got behind Trump to represent them, is being drowned out.
Here's I agree with you. I agree that there's other lobbies, but there are none as profoundly involved as the Israel lobby seems to be, because like I said, they have this synergy. And again, I don't know how it exists, or if it's organized in a way for there to be a synergy or whatever. But you do have left-wing Jews, some of which are anti-Israel, mind you, that are funneling people from these foreign countries that Israel destroys. It's almost like they're they don't dislike Israel. They dislike Israel because it makes them feel guilty. And so they want to do something. And what they do is something here to bring them to the United States of America. And it's like, well, dude, this is your problem that your people created. And again, it's not even wrong to say things like that, because it's nobody would say that, for example, Sicilians weren't enacting power over New York City using the Italian mafia in New York City that was run by Italian Americans. Nobody would say that that's a controversial thing to say.
Or the Irish in Boston.
Exactly. So why, and this is what I say, why, when I say that there is Jewish mafiosos on the left and on the right in this country that engage in enacting influence over our politicians to get them to support things that the American people don't support themselves. And that's when that's the question that you have to be asking when those interests become greater. Because think about big agriculture, think about big pharma, think about these groups. At the end of the day, these companies that are lobbying are American companies. They might be transnational, but they're headquartered in the United States, and Americans are asking that these decisions be made. Israel is a foreign country. Jews are a people that recognize themselves as Jews first and not Americans first. I'm not a sloganeer or anything. I don't like to use slogans against people because they are just slogans. But there's a reason they're so repulsed by two slogans, and that is America first, because they're not. They can't be. They're not truly Jewish if they're America first. And that's like I'm not making ethnic jabs. That's the nature of being Jewish, is that you're Jewish first. You've survived for 10,000 years, horrific persecutions, enslavements, things like that. That's your identity. And so your identity is Jews first. You are Jews first. Cool. Whatever. And then the second thing is Christ is King.
Yeah. There was a huge controversy over that too.
Exactly. Those are the two slogans. They don't mind Make America Great Again, because you can make America great again while simultaneously, helping Israel out. Maybe helping Israel does make America great again. That argument can be made. When you make the argument America first, how the hell does that work?
Yeah.
That doesn't work at all. Or Christ is king. Shit, Christ is king. No Jew will ever say that.
Yeah, because it's not in their,
It's
it's
not in there.
antithetical to their
It's
belief
not.
system.
It's antithetical to their identity. So when this is why they hate Nick Fuentes. This is why they hate Tucker Carlson. That's why they hate Candace Owens, because they're willing to say that Jews act as an ethnic group, and sometimes, in the right-wing sense of things, do it for a foreign nation. And on the left-wing side, do it because they feel guilty about what Israel's doing. I mean, you have both sides of that coin there. It's just like, hey, Jews, you either get with the program or you can go move to Israel. That's what Brett Cooper said to Randy Fine.
Yeah, that was very interesting when even Brett Cooper came out and said something like that. And it really shows that the issue needs to be addressed. Yeah. Because you may have boomers, you may have millennials, you may have Gen Xers who are very pro-Israel first. There's a lot of them out there that are very Israel first, and I've passed by churches that have the Israeli flag with their flag, and hey, it's America, you rock on. But the problem that I see, and that's what I'm trying to address to people, and I said this to David Harzani. David Harzani and I went back and forth because he put up this thing, like he put up they were making fun of Gen Zers where they were putting up these mansions that I heard that I was able to afford this working as a busboy and all these other kinds of things. I said, man, you're blowing your own foot off with a bazooka, because that generation will check out. And he responded and he said, I don't want to work with people who have a victim mentality. And I said, my last thing was, you people in Washington, D.C., you people who have this idea that you're just going to browbeat these kids into agreeing with you. They're adults now. They see the world for what it is, whether you agree with it, whether you don't agree with it, they will check out. And the people on the left, the Gen Zers of the left, they're in line all the way to the top with their values. It may be shifting more to socialism, but that's been happening for the better part of 20 years. That's just an end result. Mamdani did not show up overnight. He is the product of 20 years of laying the foundation for it.
Yeah.
The right's going to come up in 10 years. I know everybody's big on JD Vance. I'm JD Vance I have some problems with, but the idea that people are going to come out and vote for JD Vance, who's going to come out for vote for JD Vance or whoever you have coming down the line in your potential politics?
Yeah, why?
If you cannot solve this issue, or at least, let's say this, Joe, explain to Gen Z, instead of saying shut up and take your medicine and deal with it, explain to them why it works. And that is the flashing red light that I see with this. I mean, that actress that had Nick on her show and then she gets deplatformed, or she got fired from a film.
Dasha Nekrasova.
Yeah, I'm bad with those names, but yes, her. Game of Thrones was a terrible show, but there was one line in there that was absolutely killer. You don't rip a man's tongue out because you're afraid of what he says. You rip it out because people will agree. You're afraid people will agree with it. And every time you do something to somebody who talks to Fuentes, all you're doing is giving that movement more teeth. You're giving it more legitimacy, and you're not addressing this anger. And you made a post a while back calling him the relief valve. And I think that was the best way to put it. Fuentes is the relief valve. And guess what? When the relief valve goes off, it doesn't get quieter the longer it's out. It gets louder. It gets more piercing the longer that steam is coming out of that relief valve. And the people in the Republican Party, the conservatives, whatever you want to call them, they can't just close their ears, or else there's the boomers are going to die out. Millennials are going to kind of grow out of it. Gen X is going to. Who is the base for this party going forward? It is an issue that you cannot kick the can down the road on.
You have to care about these people. You have to desire to invest in them. You have to show that you're willing to help them thrive and succeed. And the boomer generation offers them nothing but a figure it out. And that is not something that the generation before them afforded to boomers.
Exactly.
That is not what the silent generation and the greatest generation afforded to boomers. They helped them. Apprenticeships were paid. There was no unpaid internships. There was supplemental family wages.
Yeah.
for the father being the one that goes out and works. And one of the things that people seem to be missing today is that we're looking at history because we know our system is failing. And how embarrassing it must feel to know that Nazi Germany cared more about its young people than America does.
That's a very controversial thing to say, man.
It is a very controversial thing to say.
That is something that will absolutely ruffle everybody's feathers the
Yep.
wrong way when you mention something like that. So I'm going to give you the chance to say, how did they do that?
Well, they had these things called, I believe it was marriage loans, and the way that it worked is if you were a man that got married and your wife stayed at home, for every single child that you had, and obviously this only applied to Aryans, of course, because it's Nazi Germany. But again, nobody gets that here, so it's still better. 25% of their mortgage would have been forgiven by the Nazi German government for every child that they had. So 4 kids, and you don't have to pay a mortgage anymore. You can focus more on cultivating that next generation. You could focus more on lifting them up. And it was working. They were focused. They were focused on creating a nuclear family. They were focused on creating a wife that stays at home, a husband that goes out and works or fights in the war, whatever's going on there, and the kids are provided for. They eat. They survive. And in America, we're being offered 50 years of debt slavery, or we're being offered portable mortgages.
Yeah. Terrible.
These aren't solving the problems. Deporting 40 million illegals would solve the problem. Ending H-1B would assist in solving the problem. Building 10 million new 900 to 2,000 square foot single family homes that BlackRock is not allowed to buy up would solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
You have offered no solutions, assumed we were stupid, and offered us no pathway to wages that are good enough to allow your wife to stay home on.
So let me circle back around this, because a lot of people are going to have a really hard time being able to take, because of the ultimate evil that Nazism was in World War II. Sure. And all these things. A lot of people are going to have a hard time trying to square anything positive coming out of that regime, that time, because of the ultimate evil that it eventually created. So how do we square that? How do we justify giving those examples, right? 1 or 2 positive examples can't give us, it can't be a good enough reason to, for how some people would think you are idolizing Nazi Germany.
Yeah, and when people do these sorts of things, this is exactly why we're all making Hitler jokes now. This is exactly why we're going in group chats and people are doing N-word towers and people are doing, like all sorts of other crazy things, because they've been so browbeaten to say, you can't say this, you can't say that, you're a white person, you need to shut up, you're not allowed to have whatever opinion. Well, if you tell a bunch of young guys that, what do you think they're going to do in private? That.
So you're saying that,
and so
not saying.
I want to continue on this.
No, please go.
Because they're going to say it. And more importantly, when you consistently fail them decade after decade after decade, they're going to resent every single thing you stand for, every single system that you idolized, everything that you did. So what are they going to do? They're going to start investigating other ones. And when they go and start learning that there was things like this that went on that were monumentally, from an objective standard, would be better for young people in the United States of America than a 50-year mortgage or a portable mortgage. That is an objectively better thing that would solve many problems with one stone. And obviously that would have to come with more houses being built and illegals being deported, of course. But if you did all of those things, this is a cohesive plan to make things better for young people. And let's not make it 25%. That's extremist Nazi propaganda. Let's make it 10% or something like that for each kid that you have. Whatever. It's relief. That's pressure relief on young people. But when when they go into history and see things like that, you're going to get Hitler edits.
No, that's just, that's why I wanted to give you the space to kind of really flesh that out, because people will hear that and they say, well, Joe Enders is a he's a Nazi supporter, because look at him, he's idolizing Nazi Germany, and I don't believe that for a second.
Funny. It's funny that people will say that to me all the time. And, you know, the Nazis bombed my grandmother. She's from Scotland. She was an immigrant here in 1960 from Scotland. The Nazis bombed my grandmother when she was a little girl. They killed her cousin over the English Channel. And never had his body recovered. He's still there in a bomber. So, you know, like I don't hold any wars against any people group that are alive today or anything like that. But, you know, obviously I have a lot more. I have as much grievance with the Nazis as most Jews do.
Okay. I just want to make sure you get the chance to flesh all parts of that out, so that,
but again, that doesn't make the idea bad. It doesn't make the Autobahn a bad idea. It doesn't make drinking water a bad idea, because Hitler did it. Hitler liked dogs too. You don't want to get a dog, do you? We can't play this game. We're done playing this game. And in fact, I'm willing to put aside any animosity that I have ever had towards the Nazis just to piss off the Jews that have been promoting systems in my country that are ruining my family's future. So, and that's the point. I'm willing to punch back, to move the Overton window in a direction. And maybe it's a little, you know, it's a little exuberant. Maybe it's a little over the top. Maybe it's a little offensive. I'm willing to do that simply to counter signal what is being thrown in our faces.
So that fits into that reactionary mindset you were talking about at the beginning?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to make sure that's stated out, because it's only natural for people to react and go to, for lack of a better term, an extreme, to demonstrate how poorly it is. Like, as an example, guys, it's so bad here. Even in Nazi Germany, you know, families were getting better deals.
We're being outdone by Nazi Germany. Like, that's a way to phrase it that maybe boomers will understand.
Yeah.
Nazi Germany cared more about their young people than you do.
And that's a very interesting way to reframe the conversation when they try to make it something else. Because and you said something in passing that I've heard it mentioned on a couple places. The American government could right now do with a stroke of a pen, because they have the Republicans in Congress and Trump. You could make a law right now. They won't. You could make a law right now saying BlackRock is not allowed to buy a private home properties. Right. If they made a law that said single family homes cannot be bought by BlackRock, Vanguard, or any multinational corporation, home prices would probably drop like that within a couple of years.
20%. They would drop 20% in 5 years.
Because,
and if you got rid of all the illegals in addition to that, they would drop 50% in 5 years in price.
Yeah. And that's why Trump got elected on immigration. People are kind of almost looking back now and saying, well, you know, there were signs at the Republican National Convention, mass deportations now. Yeah. And when he first got sworn in, mass deportations are still a huge issue for a lot of people. I'm not a huge fan of it, but people are, well, no, there's two. I'm fine with ICE and federal officials enforcing immigration law. It's in the Constitution. It's in the law they have to actually do. Yeah. Sending in National Guard troops to assist and things like that. That's a little borderline for me, but I understand that you have these cities, LA, Memphis, Charlotte, Austin, Texas, who are fighting back and obstructing federal law. So I see where Trump feels like he has no other option to do that. But immigration is that key issue that it almost feels like the neocon, the Reagan Republicans, they're trying to reframe that into a negative, when people like myself, people like you, everyday people are like, no, we would like to continue the deportations, please. You know, we would like to do that. Yes, sometimes somebody gets swept up who's a U.S. citizen. Obviously, that's for the courts to resolve. But one or two people being swept up in an entire raid should not stop the idea that people there's a ground well of support behind. And I'll say this, I'll stop talking after this. This is essentially a lot of people feel the last chance to really correct this problem, because if Trump loses the midterms, or if they lose in 2028, or if both happen, immigration will never be a topic that will even be discussed on a campaign trail from the Republicans or the conservatives ever again.
They'll open the floodgates. If they get in power again, they will open the floodgates and we will not have our country anymore. It will be gone forever. People don't understand this. A lot of people like to say that America is a propositional nation based on the Bill of Rights and the Constitution of the United States. It is not that. And the founders said it wasn't that. The Constitution was a document meant for Americans and their posterity. And they were Western European Christians. That's a very, very important nuance. The America is the American people. You don't get citizenship papers like Mehdi Hassan would have you believe and become an American. You are an American citizen, but you are not an American. Your ancestors did not brave the wilderness of Montana, Colorado, and Utah.
Let me push back real quick on that. Let's say somebody like Hassan comes in, becomes a U.S. citizen, is not the perpetual fire starter gaslighter that he is. Instead, moves to a small town, opens up a business, and integrates into the community. Has a couple kids. They go to school. They after a generation or two, would you consider his grandkids in that scenario? Would they be considered Americans?
No.
Even after their kids who are born here as American citizens have ingrained into the culture, they believe in all the values that you would stand for, you would still not consider them Americans?
I would consider them good immigrants.
Okay.
Now let me tell you why. So, and I know this is a controversial statement, but it's true that
that's why I asked the question.
Yeah. And the answer is so like when I'm going to tell you this, when I give you my answer, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Because it's common sense. It's not too complex and nuanced. Let me put it this way. My oldest ancestors in the United States of America came here in the 1830s. They immigrated here in the 1830s from Germany. By 1848, there is a photograph of my family taken from before the Civil War with my fourth or fifth great grandmother holding a Bible and a rosary in her hand and her husband standing right beside her. That's American history. And let's fast forward a little bit further to 1870. There's newspaper clippings. My family settled Plum City, Wisconsin, and held the first religious service that was ever done in Plum City, Wisconsin. It was Catholic. And so I have, through every single event in American history, a blood connection to what went on in this country. I have a familial duty to feel, to make them proud, to do what they think would be right for my country, for the country that they gave me, for all of those things. If you are from India, like Vivek Ramaswamy, and it's just your parents that were here, all you care about is your own advancement. All you care about, you can't have the connection that I have. You can't have the depth of love. You can't say when you go to Plum City, Wisconsin, that the Enders family was some of the first feet to set foot there. You can't do that. You don't feel that love. It's a different level of love. If you can't love America as an American, you're not an American.
So that's why I do respect and understand the way you're breaking it down. Like I said, I have ancestry that I can tie all the way up to the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution.
And I have one side, 1960, they didn't come here, right? So I mean, I don't hate immigrants, but my grandma wasn't an American; she was Scottish.
But then, by your recognition, you wouldn't be an American.
No, that's not true. I just told you what my connection is.
Well, even if half of it, I'm just trying to say, if half of it is immigrant.
No, if half of it is, it is. Like if your blood connection goes all the way back, like so if your question is, let's change the question a little bit. Vivek's dad moves here, marries a heritage American woman with ancestry back to the Mayflower. Yeah, I mean he has a tie. He has a tie to America and is an American.
So the idea of an American is somebody who can trace
it's eschatological.
Okay.
Yeah, it's eschatological, right? So I'm not saying that like he's not a citizen. I'm not saying that because he's not an American, I can revoke his citizenship and deport him. But I'm just saying your ethnicity is Indian.
Okay. What if he was a Catholic Indian?
Then he's a Catholic Indian.
Okay. All right. Well, Those are very interesting points. I don't disagree too far off of that. I guess I'd be a little bit to the left of you in that regard, that if you come here, you adopt the principles, the feelings, if you're a Catholic and you're following the tenets of Catholicism, and you may not be, as a first generation, an American, but I would say by your great grandkids, your great grandkids could be considered Americans.
Oh, I agree with. Yeah, I agree
That,
with
that was my initial question. Like,
I thought you said grandparent. I thought you said grandkids. I don't think your
No.
grandkid. I think your grandkids is like that iffy period. I mean, look at Italians. Like, for example, my grandfather was my grandfather on my Italian side. They came I believe it was his grandfather that came here from Italy.
Same with mine.
Yeah, and they were Americans by then, but there was still, even then, vestiges.
So
of the homeland.
The way I would say, if somebody comes here today, doesn't matter if it's from Russia, India, wherever, they come here and they become U.S. citizens. You are a U.S. citizen. Yes, you have all the rights and privileges that a U.S. citizen has. They open up a deli shop or something like that, and then they ingratiate themselves into the community. Their kids, they have a couple kids. Their kids grow up in America. They are just as good. They love America for what it's provided for their family. I mean, you could kind of push this over to a lot of Asian immigrants as well, who ingratiate themselves into communities, others Hispanic communities as well, where they ingratiate themselves by their third or fourth generation. I would consider that third or fourth generation. I would say, okay, you guys are Americans because you have some ties going back a couple generations here.
Your heritage has to be America. That's the point. Is like, if your heritage isn't America, how the hell you're not an American? You might be an American on paper, but are you American in spirit? Are you an American in soul? There has to be some sort of intrinsic tie, inherent tie to where, to where you're coming from. And, my family being here for centuries now is pretty special. So it's
a point of pride for myself as well. It is absolutely a point of pride for myself as well.
But that's my thing. It's like, you never know. You never know. You know that what they built, that what they fought for, it wasn't for Germany. It wasn't for any of those. And they did this for so many years. And this is going to be even probably more controversial. It depends on what country you're coming from, how many generations before you're actually like fully ingratiated, fully American as well. I think somebody from India is going to take many more generations to become fully American than somebody from England.
Well, that's just you're making a cultural argument, because they're adapting to a completely different culture that they are not.
It's actually racial, and I'll tell you why that is. It's not, and it's not to be I'm not being racist or anything, but what I'm saying, but what I mean by it being racial is that, if that person marries an American and has children, they will be entirely indistinguishable from any other American kid, because America is a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant country. It would be much easier for them to blend into America and to just kind of become that and not be so for example, my grandma's a good example, being from Scotland, right? It's like, well, that's the people that came to America and founded America. She just came here a lot later. So I am 2 generations later. I have no connection really to Scotland or England or anything like. I'm just an American. I am just an American white person. And it's so much easier. But when you're Indian, right? For example, like, there's this visible marker. There's this, I'm not fully intertwined. Whether it should be that way or shouldn't be that way is neither here nor there. That is that way. You have more generations that need to pass. I mean, even Black people are not fully embraced in the traditional sense of what an American is. They're still separate. They're an African American. They're not and maybe they want it that way. I don't know. It's hard to argue.
I can say that the African American label is a product of government segregation in that regard, because when I worked in the Fort Worth Independent School District, the Dallas Independent School District, and I worked with a bunch of coaches when I was on the coaching staff. None of them refer to themselves as African Americans. They all refer to
here's my question.
as Americans. They're Black Americans.
Here's my question to you. in your entire existence or in the entire existence of any black person or white person in the United States, when the words "as American as apple pie" turned up, was a black person ever pictured in somebody's mind? No.
Probably, according to the iconic, the imagery, if that's what you're going with, then I would have to say no.
Right. Well, and that's not an insult. It's just that's like black people are heritage Americans. I'm not saying that they're not. I'm saying that it's like a parallel heritage with America, which they're still Americans, but it's a parallel one. It's not a subsumed one. You know what I'm saying? It's not the same way that an English person that immigrated here in two generations later, their grandkids, while they're as American as apple pie, like I was just saying. So, the distinction is, and that's the thing. Let's say it's a Ukrainian, doesn't even use the same alphabet with us. 2 generations later, who the hell's going to know?
Okay. Those are very interesting points.
You're right. Not cultural, but actually racial. And I don't know what else. It's an interesting thing. And honestly, Africans do better than Indians too, because Africans can marry African Americans, and they're going to be indistinguishable from any other African American in 2 generations.
Yeah. Those are some very interesting points. I hadn't brought any of those into account. And I think that leads to, a whole different thought process that, and entire swaths of Americans are having, that most people are not even understanding and or realizing, which is why I'm glad you're here having this conversation with me. And so we're going to move on to our last subject, because I always say to myself, this will probably be like an hour, and they always blow right over an hour, which is fantastic every time. And I love it. Let's talk about Catholicism, because Joe, you are a Catholic like I am. And you are more of a quote unquote trad, I guess, if you want to throw that label around. You're more in pursuit of a more reverent faith, and it seems to be the thing that, as the younger generations, I know it's more of it's becoming almost a cliche talking point, but they are embracing that more reverent traditional path in the face of the boomer generation and their mass, which is that Novus Ordo, that ordinary rite. And it's really interesting to see how this is playing out. Especially, there was some hope with Pope Leo XIV coming in that there may be a respite, and we're still getting some ambiguity out of that. And I'm here in Austin, and our bishop just banned kneeling. You can't even kneel now for communion, because his statement was too many people were having a hard time getting up. No, yeah, he did. You can't kneel for communion.
That's
you can't even have kneelers.
I don't think he can do that.
He put it out.
That goes against the GIRM, which is the
here's how he got around it. He's banned the actual kneelers, but he said outright, you could still
you can if you want to.
You can if
the reason was that people were having trouble. Wait a minute. If the reason was people were having trouble getting up, why would you have them get on their knees on concrete? That's going to make it harder to get up.
Yeah, that's exactly why. I don't know if you saw that meme going around with the old lady with the walker that had the kneeler built in. She's like, oh, now it's fit for the Austin masses. But yeah, it's funny how, much like in secular culture, the boomers are coming down hard on younger generations, trying to get them to fit into this box, which is kind of funny, because the boomers were the first generation to push outside of a box that they were given. Now they're seeing the same thing happen to them, and they're reacting just as harshly, but
much harshly.
It's interesting that the younger generations have turned, and they are turning as hard as they can towards the beauty and unity of the Latin Rite.
Yeah. There's a couple things I want to say. I don't describe myself as a trad, but it's not because I'm not traditional. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you don't like the label?
I don't like the clique that comes along with it. Well, I don't like being associated with people that are not like me in any way.
So is it because Catholic Inc. has taken the term trad and kind of repurposed it for their own ends?
No, it's actually funny. It's a lot more petty than that.
Even better.
because trads are dorks. I mean, that's really what it is to me. They do dorky things. They don't allow grace to build upon nature, in my opinion. And the way that they don't shoot guns, they don't go hunting, and if they do go hunting, it's on a private reserve, and they have to be wearing they don't wear camouflage. They wear it's just not, it's not authentically masculine to me. And it's also unserious, in a way. And I don't necessarily respect the imposed aesthetics, the imposed tone policing, or anything that goes along with it. I am a bombastic, offensive Italian white man in America. All right. I don't take BS from anybody. And you're not going to tell me how I have to dress or how I have to ask. And if you think you're going to be presumptuous with me, side eye me at mass because I can't kneel for the entire time because I have a herniated disc in my back, I'm going to approach you and I'm going to express my displeasure.
So one thing, this is fantastic. I didn't even think we were going to talk about this, but I don't want to say LARPing, but the aesthetic attention that some people are putting towards a certain group of things, how much you kneel, your outfit, do you
how many devotionals you're doing?
Yeah,
like Nick was complaining about that. He got flack for that. And I'm like, no, I know what you're talking about. I hate that too. And it's not that I hate devotionals. I have a relic of Saint Therese on me at all times right now. I do devotionals, but I do the devotionals that I feel are good for my spiritual life, not what you feel are good for my spiritual lives. Back off me.
That's crazy because, the Catholic Church, it feels like everybody's got to you have to do the rosary. Obviously, I do the rosary. I love it. I think it's fantastic. I also have different devotions. I do the Holy Face. Right now I'm doing the Purgatory Manual. I don't do these things to brag, but it's an example of the Catholic Church with its 2,000 years of history has so many different, the St. Michael's Chaplet. There's 1,000 different things you could do. You could do the St. Gertrude prayer every morning if that's the thing that you wanted to do. But if it feels like a purity test, that if you aren't doing
it doesn't feel, that is what it is. And they want, you're not in the club. You're not on the team. You're not on sorry, Taylor Marshall. I'm not trying to jab you right now. I really am not, but I didn't mean you should be on a rosary team. All right. It's good. It's good. It's good.
I'll put a star up top.
Yeah. Exactly. A Star of David. No.
You're making it worse.
Yeah, I'm not helping. I'm not helping. But it's just like, it's just like, let's be Catholics together. All right. Can we be Catholics together? Do I think the traditional Latin Mass is a lot more beautiful than the Novus Ordo? Yeah, I do. I'm not afraid to say that. I believe that. I feel that while I'm there. But there's things about the Novus Ordo that I really like. And nobody's going to tell me that I don't like it, and that it hasn't enriched my spiritual life in profound ways. Do I think that all Novus Ordos need to be done in a way that should appear indistinguishable from the traditional Latin Mass to somebody who's never been to Mass before? Yes, that needs to look that way. It cannot. You cannot be getting rid of Ad Orientem, which is, if you guys don't know, it's when the priest's back is towards you. I don't believe in 50 Eucharistic ministers. You can have Eucharistic ministers, but only when need requires it. That is the purpose of Eucharistic ministers. That's how it was put into place. Women it should be mandatory for women to veil. It is a symbol that the man is the head of his household. And in the Novus Ordo, they don't have to right now. No. But I think that we should incorporate that. And we know that Pope Leo is looking to overhaul the Novus Ordo, and I think that that's a fantastic thing. I think that will help a lot of people, and it'll help recapture what the council actually said the Novus Ordo was supposed to be. And I learned a little bit at Church Militant. I just ragged on trads pretty hard. And I wrote an entire article calling them dorks while I was at Church Militant, and how much I could not stand it. But I'm not here to attack them. I'm here to tell them I'm not a part of your clique. It's a different thing. That's not an attack on you. If you want to have your clique that does your devotionals, wears tweed, smokes pipes, talks about Thomism instead of ever lifting weights, that's on you. You do that. You can do that. That's your choice. Church militant, it was all about fighting those people, defeating those people, doing all those things. And I had taken a step back, and I thought long and hard about this, and I was like, this is stupid. How are we enemies when we were never friends? Look at the bishops. Look at the conciliar process. Those bishops punched each other. Arius got punched in the face by St. Nicholas. They had some tension, but they were all friends first. Let's be friends first. Let's learn how to be friends, how to be getting along, so we don't end up with Michael Voris, Taylor Marshall, and Patrick Coffin punching each other in the face simultaneously at all times.
Yeah.
That's what the boomers messed up. They didn't become friends before they started punching each other. And I mean real friends. I don't mean we're in a group chat together.
Yeah, there is a lack of, oh gosh, what was I going to say? There is a lack of respect for our brothers and sisters in Christ and the soul that they possess, and how everybody on, as a member of the church militant, not the show, not the actual church militant upon earth, we're all supposed to, drag each other kicking and screaming. We got to get each other to heaven. That's supposed to be the goal for us here. And we spend a lot of time either pushing each other out of cliques or, fighting each other over,
look at SSPX. Look at SSPX, right? That is a very controversial issue. I believe that they are in schism. I still think, but listen, I don't want to argue about it. I'm no interest in arguing about it.
I'm not. I'm just telling you my opinion. You can finish.
Oh no, yeah, sorry. Go. But what I'm saying, I want to be your friend. I don't care. I don't. That's my opinion on that matter. Okay. Can I? Are you going to go around tweeting that I hate the SSPX? I mean, I used to use that strategy, and that got me nowhere. Who did I convince to do anything about the SSPX? No, I want to be friends with everybody in the SSPX, because whether or not they are in full communion, they're still Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
And because they're Catholic, they're my brothers, and they're my brothers in Christ. Because they're baptized, even I'll extend this to Protestants. They're separated brothers in Christ. I want to be friends with them. They're my friends. Let's be friends. And then you'll listen to me when we're friends. You'll listen to my opinion. You'll consider my opinion. But until then, why am I starting fights with people that's not effective evangelization? Now, sorry, you can go ahead with your opinion. I just wanted to clarify that.
Finish.
I don't want to be in fights with people anymore. It wasn't working. And it wasn't getting the message across properly. And I'm not being paid by anybody to do that. I just believe the truth, and I believe what I perceive to be the truth, and what my conscience tells me is the truth. If you're doing the same thing, we can be friends and we can hash it out as Catholics.
So when I used to do live streams, I had somebody try to drop the grenade on me and be like, "What's your opinion on the SSPX?" Like it was some kind of gotcha question. And it's very simple. I have people that I consider great friends of mine that go to it. And you know what? I love them either way. I won't say anything for them negative or positive on that.
Yeah.
If that's where they go, great. I'm not even saying this to be, I hope it's the pathway that gets you to heaven. So I like to go to Latin Mass as much as possible. A lot of times I end up going to a Novus Ordo. I hope you have the same feeling for me. I hope I have people that only want to go to the FSSP. Great. That's how you choose. We have the Catholic Church. It has all these ways to do it. You know what I mean? If that's how you can get your fullness of your spiritual fulfillment, awesome. I don't have a problem with any people who go to any of them, because I got to make sure I get to heaven, and I'm hoping that you guys are doing the same, and I trust their judgment, and if that's how they're going to go by it, then that's how they're going to go by it.
Right.
So that's really it in that regard. And so I'm guessing I'm getting some vibes that you're actually you're not. Are you positive, neutral, or negative on the Holy Father?
I mean, well, I'm positive on every Holy Father, first of all, but outside of that, as far as what he's done so far,
that's probably a better way to. We should always be positive.
Yes.
How do you feel he is enacting as his role as the bishop, as the vicar?
I think he's being a little too hard on America for things that America for when there are things that he should be harder on. He's being hard on Americans for something that he should be much harder on other Americans for. Let me put it that way. It seems like when the right wing is doing something that in America that the Vatican perceives as contrary to Catholic teaching, that it is a much bigger deal than when the left is consistently and always doing it.
Yeah, that Dick Durbin issue really kind of brought it to the forefront when he was going to be presented an award, and the Holy Father made well, he's done some good things, and everybody's like, well, what about his record on abortion? Like, you're not going to talk about that at all. And so it's one of those things that I think that may crystallize kind of what you are putting out there.
Well, I mean, that's what this is what I'll say. I'm disappointed in how Pope Leo has handled the United States. However, I am quite impressed by how he's been dealing with the church. I think he's been doing pretty good. I think he's been really listening to everybody. He'll bring in the trads. He'll bring in the liberals. He'll talk to everybody in the church, and he's kind of trying to figure things out. Which I think, as an early pope, early in your pontificate, you're young still. You got plenty of time to be pope. That's a really good thing to be doing. I've heard some things about his love of the liturgy, all forms of the liturgy. That makes me really happy. I think that that's a great view for the pontiff to have. There was transgenders invited to a dinner, and everybody seems to, this is my problem, is that there's a lot of people that have a problem with Pope Francis, who I have issues with and have criticized in the past. God rest his soul. I love Pope Francis, but he did a lot of good, but I didn't like the way he did certain things. Let's say that. Well, Pope Leo, Pope Francis's year was scheduled out in January.
Yeah, this whole year was not Pope Leo's year.
Right. Pope Leo blessing ICE, like that was a Pope Francis event. Mm-hmm. All of these things are Pope Francis events. He's just fulfilling the end of his pontificate right now. And frankly, to honor your predecessor that way, instead of to disrespect it, which could potentially scandalize people and undermine the papacy, probably not a good idea. And so I think that, a lot of people that are disappointed with him as an American who went to Peru and saw destitute, impoverished people after growing up in boomer America, mind you, he's not connected to the problems of Americans. I'm sorry. He was in Peru for 40 years.
Yeah, it's true.
He's connected to their problems. He's not connected to our problems. And because of that, he's not dealing with America in a way that I feel is proper. And not only that, people like Bishop Seitz from El Paso are making it 10 times worse by only providing him with one side of the immigration story.
Yeah.
And it's completely unfair. I know the articles that were written about his visit, and I think they were the ones by the Vatican, mind you. So it's not like I'm going to, LifeSite News or Church Militant as my source for these things. You have Bishop Mark Seitz go and visit Pope Leo, and he just presents him with hundreds of sob stories from migrants. How many sob stories from Americans who had their family members murdered and raped by illegal aliens? How many that died from the opioids that were brought in by the illegal aliens? What about somebody from Ohio whose cat or dog was eaten by a Somalian immigrant? I'm sorry, but Pope Leo being disconnected, spending so much time in Peru, I don't think he knows. And frankly, if the poverty was as bad as some people have told me in Peru when he was there and what he experienced, he might not care. Those might be first world problems to him. And remember, he's the leader of the global church. He's not the leader of the U.S. church. My major disappointment is with the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, who know. They know. Bishop Seitz knows.
Yeah, and then that extends into Catholic Relief Services and that whole
Catholic charities,
and how it's really
CNS.
It's an absolute stain on the church that these organizations have been allowed to operate with impunity to assist in the illegal migration of people, which leads to these immigrants being trafficked awful things being done to them. If we're going to talk dignity of the human person, you want to stop illegal immigration to stop those things from taking place, among everything else.
In 2025, we've gotten 14 statements from the USCCB condemning and to be fair, a lot of it's nonsense. They're not being treated in an undignified way in the detention centers. The only denial of human dignity that I'm hearing is there has been instances where pastoral care was denied by immigration authorities for the people in the detention centers. That's absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah, agreed.
That's absolutely unacceptable. If a priest, now the priests are not to show up with protest signs and demand entry. They are to go through the proper channels, and priests that have gone through the proper channels, I've seen posts about this and have said they're generally pretty amicable to letting pastors come in and minister to the detainees.
There was the time where somebody brought the Our Lord and Savior and the monstrous and was parading it up and down it's like, no, that's
a show.
You're not supposed to use our Lord as a show like that. That's actually it's against church teaching to do such a thing.
Yes.
So yes, I agree with that. And
but the pastoral care is a real issue. If anybody's being denied pastoral care, that is unacceptable, and that is a denial of their human dignity. But it's not like they're being beaten in those detention centers. They're saying that families are being separated. That's how it goes with any crime. Mm-hmm. If I murder you, Rick, I'm going to be separated from my family.
Usually how it goes.
Yeah. And then the other problem is if the entire family is detained, they are also separated. Well, there's a reason that they're separated, because those people might be human traffickers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're looking out for the safety of children. It is about dignity. So, when you don't have the full story, when you don't know what's going on, or you're the USCCB, who I sometimes wonder, and I'm not going to launch an accusation. I sometimes wonder if it has something to do with the fact that they have $100 million in government contracts for migration and refugee services. That's an estimate. It might be less than that. I hope it's less than that, but that's about 40% of their annual budget.
Yep. Yeah, that's something I was beating the drum on a long time as well when that came up. It said, if you look at the funding sources, the U.S. government has a very, very large hand in the funding sources.
But Trump canceled it. Trump canceled it.
Yeah, which is good. I think it should have been done.
It should have been. I agree with that. It should have been canceled. But on the flip side, I think that I hope at least that it is not the case that the USCCB is being catty with these statements and ignoring Americans out of being catty, because when we see the problems in the church right now, if you look at Latinos, which are who the Catholic Church, or I shouldn't say the Catholic Church, who these Catholic NGOs is a good word for them.
Yeah.
Or what these Catholic NGOs are trafficking Latinos into the United States of America. I imagine in the hopes that they will fill the pews because the Catholics here, are leaving. I want to let the bishops know that this is a strategy that will inevitably, one, destroy the fabric of what America is, of what an American is, and two, it will completely fail to fill your pews. 52% of U.S.-born Hispanics are no longer Catholic. They leave the church at an extraordinarily high rate. Once the
Americanization of any immigrant group leads to them leaving. Yeah.
Correct. And 23% come here and leave the Catholic Church. So the immigrants themselves, not even the ones that just got here, 23% leave the church. Now, however, let's look to Gen Z, the young, angry Gen Z male. They're like the only group that's becoming more Catholic. So, but in the year of 2023, they went from 19% of all religions in the country to 21%. That's a 2% increase. And the reports of mass conversions to the faith are from white Protestants to Catholicism, and the anecdotal evidence from all the priests say it's a lot of young men.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nick Fuentes. Who knew a Mexican is what white people needed? No, I'm kidding. He's white. But no, seriously, that's what saves the church. You need to start uplifting these white men. They just haven't seen the gains that they want to know that that's worth the effort, but it actually is. These people are suffering. These people are looking for purpose. These people are looking for someone to care about them. And that could be the church if only you didn't project that you care more about migrants than you do about them. And remember, the USCCB is for American Catholics. Yeah. Yes, obviously obviously they have a responsibility to anybody within their diocese. That is 100% true. But the USCCB exists as a group for American Catholics, and American Catholics are leaving the church in droves. And there is a glimmer of hope among those Catholics that they're coming back. And there's not one statement about how they've been vilified as Nazis for having normal opinions on gender. There's nothing about that at all. There's nothing about their inability to afford a home and demanding something better for these young American Catholics. There's no programs for settling young Zoomer men into homes where they can get married and have tons of children. There's nothing.
No, it doesn't seem like it.
But the migrants get resettled when they come here into a home. They get everything that could be provided to Gen Z young men that need it.
Yeah. And that seems to be really a huge bone of discontent.
It is young people's biggest gripe with the bishops.
And I am not in disagreement with you at all that, this is the supposed benefit to being an American is your access to these things. And when you take the Catholic ideology and intertwine it, people are sitting out on the sidelines kind of like, who is looking out for me, right? Who is looking out for me?
And who in Rome has cracked down on the Latin American bishops for not taking care of their people? Why they're coming to the USCCB and expecting the USCCB to take care of them?
Yeah.
That's problem number 2. Hey, anybody over in the Vatican, I don't care if it's, the Secretary of State, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, who it is. Will you get those people in line? Get them helping their own people. Send money to them so they can help people in Latin America. I don't want them to starve. I don't want them to suffer. But I also don't want them in my country.
It is an indictment on the bishops of those countries that
it is. They're failing.
They are fleeing all of these persecutions, and it's supposed to be one country because, of course, the asylum rules are you're supposed to go to the first safe country you have access to, not the country that that has Buffalo Wild Wings. That's not right. It's not like I don't want to go to Guatemala or I don't want to because they have Buffalo Wild Wings here. I want to go to America, land of the Whopper and Buffalo Wild Wings. That's where I want to go. It's the economic incentive instead of the safe passage, which can't, the rise of the idea of the economic migrant during the Biden years was a total reframing of the vocabulary, and it's one of these things where people are looking and saying, okay, yes, we want to be charitable. We want to help those, want to help our neighbor. But at the same time, how can I do that? How can I help my neighbor if I can't help my family or I can't even help start a family or how can I contribute to help these people in these other places? I can't even contribute to my diocese because I don't have a job or my job. I make $15 an hour and I work 20 hours a week.
And my wife has to work.
And my wife has to work. We can't have
and we have to pay for daycare because of that. And my kids aren't being raised by me. They're being raised by who knows who, child molester, whoever it might be at wherever it might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The whole early childhood, Montessori system, all those kinds of things are just they're excuses for parents to dump their kids off. And it's just completely unfathomable. And of course,
not a single USCCB statement about that human dignity.
Nope. Or the fact that, they would say, oh, we have to, what about Catholic schools as an option? Well, unfortunately, Catholic schools have been overrun by teachers who fled public school and found some kind of safe refuge within the Catholic school system because it used to be run by the nuns, right? That's why it was affordable. It was affordable because the nuns ran it and they actually practiced the faith. Then it got overrun because of whatever modernity concerns. And now you can't even use that. Catholics can't even present that as an option. Like, oh, you don't want your kid to go to public school. You can go to the safety of this Catholic school that's being fulfilled within the faith, that's being run by religious sisters, that has this bubble. Instead, it's just little bit more expensive. It's a private school with a crucifix on top.
And that's the problem, is like, you go to other religions, you go to Islam, they have community centers, they have all of these resources that they provide to their people. Jews, every single Jewish person gets a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah, and or a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah, and they start their lives off with like 50 grand in cash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or even look at the Amish.
Yeah, exactly. You have all of these mechanisms in place. The Catholic Church doesn't offer what it used to these people. They don't offer the assistance that these people need to get their lives on track. And you'll find that the churches that do that on their own are the ones that start attracting young people.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see that the reverence obviously attracts young people too, but I think the bigger thing is offering something to young people, offering housing assistance, offering marriage assistance, all sorts of things like that. You know, help me get married, help me live a Catholic life in accordance to these things. Find my dignity. Use your network at the church to find me a good job that'll allow me to have a family and a home that I need. Do a fundraiser to kick a Kickstarter fundraiser through the whole parish and spread it across all the under 25s at the parish, which in many cases is only like 30 people.
Yeah.
If they raised 100 grand at that parish, which with the wealthy people that exist at every single parish and the small donations that everybody would offer to that, they could kickstart that many lives and that many Catholic families by doing so. So, you know, there's all these like very, very simple diocesan parish level solutions that would really make Catholicism attractive to somebody. He's like, well, you don't want them coming there for that reason. You have to get them started. You can't just,
it's the same reason you can't just
pile, you can't pile expectations onto young people. Well, if you get Catholic, you can't do birth control. You're never allowed to get divorced. And, you know, you have to be the provider. The woman's not supposed to work. You can't say all of those things and then offer them nothing.
I mean, it's the same reason why they have like fish fries and things to evangelize. It's like, well, you can't come here if you're not, you can't come for the fish. It's stupid to put those strings on different things when it's just community outreach.
It starts with community and turns into strong faith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which becomes the backbone of your community. It's a circle. It's how it actually works. It perpetuates itself. So
Jesus didn't go up to the apostles when he first met them and said, "I am God, follow me." He said, "Come, let me make you fishers of men."
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that is sorely needed in the church today, is actually trying to go out and evangelize, trying to actually be proud of it outside of the aesthetics or whatever they can do here and there, and actually promoting it in that regard.
We don't. We just don't treat our people with dignity.
No, we don't, because we've lost the idea.
We treat migrants with dignity.
We do.
We set them up here, man.
Oh, I've seen stories from people that are just, they come in, houses, phones, plans, all these kinds of things. Yep. And then you wonder why,
you're like, did I get that when I was 18?
Well, you look at, I mean, even for us, for me, I'm like, I didn't need it at 18 because I had opportunities. I could find jobs to do that. But now, where it seems like things are getting more desperate for people, there is such a chasm between those who are singled out to be provided for and looked at as, we value you, versus you can pretty much go off and die because I don't care about you. And it feels that way. It feels that way when one group is given all kinds of things, access to loans and all kinds of other things. And then if you have the misfortune of being, for example, just a single white male, you have access to literally nothing. And things will be more difficult for you to try and get a job, to try and get into college, even if you even wanted to go there at this point, because the majority of people that go to college now are women. And so it's all of these issues that Gen Z is screaming about, that needs to be addressed and they need to be looked at, or the outlets that they're going to look for are going to make Nick Fuentes look like the Monopoly man, right? They think it's kind of like the things they say about Trump. It's like, oh, if you keep this up, the guy that comes after Trump's going to be worse. You think the things that somebody like Nick Fuentes says is bad now, keep ignoring Gen Z, because they'll just find somebody even more bombastic. And I know some people say, oh, that's impossible. No, it's not. It's entirely
No,
possible for them to
let
find
me
one.
introduce you to the real Adolf Hitler. You can actually get that.
Yeah.
That's the point. Like Nick Fuentes is a moderating force for Gen Z. They don't understand how angry they are. They want billionaires' heads rolling.
Yeah.
That's what they want. That's what right and left want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you will if Nick Fuentes is Hitler, you're gonna get Hitler, and it's not going to be Nick Fuentes.
No. It's much like, these are the first people that pop up. And if you do not address the concerns, well, this guy didn't work, so we're going to go to the guy that will get it done for us, whatever that means.
Right.
I don't know how you think that is at home, folks, but they did just elect the guy, the Mondani in New York. They did just elect another socialist, not a democratic socialist like AOC, but an actual socialist in Portland. So they are going to these models. And if younger conservative, if you want to say that, conservative minded people don't see that the Conservative Party or the Republican Party is not going to work for them, they will find, and I know you think it's ridiculous, they will be the majority bloc soon enough of voting. The boomers will die off.
Yeah.
And they will find somebody that represents them. And this is why you got to listen to Joe, and you got to listen to people and say, this is not doom and gloom. You can still fix this, but pushing them down, labeling them, kicking them off, deplatforming them, trying to push them into a box that they clearly do not want to be in is a recipe for utter disaster.
Yeah.
And so we've gone about 2 hours. I have a question that, or at least I'm going to end, and I'm going to give Joe this opportunity that I've seen him say a couple times. And it happened after the acquisition of Pints with Aquinas by the Daily Wire. And it's this, Matt Walsh, famously at the Daily Wire, is out there. I've been predicting that guy's going to cut bait at some point. I think it's just going to get to a point. He's the one is obviously the most disturbed. If you've listened to my show for any length of time, I don't think you can work for the Daily Wire and be a Catholic in good standing. That's probably my most controversial statement because of the person that runs it, Ben Shapiro, and the thing from a Catholic point of view, the things he said about our Lord Savior. I just don't think those two things really work together. So Joe Enders is in the elevator and Matt Walsh walks in, and now Joe has 30 seconds to try and convince Matt to leave the Daily Wire. What do you say to Matt Walsh to convince him to leave the Daily Wire and start something else?
How'd you like to stop working for a Jew? No, I'm kidding. What I would say to Matt Walsh, I hope they clip that one. No, what I would say to Matt Walsh is you are not alone. There are a lot of disaffected young white guys out there that are Catholic, that are passionate about the Catholic faith. And I just so happen to have every single one of those resources that you would need to get that thing up and running in my back pocket. I'm talking about fundraising professionals. I'm talking about camera professionals, editing professionals, marketing professionals, and business professionals that would be willing to all come together around a project that you would be willing to get involved with. And all of them are Catholic. And you know that because I have spent many years as a senior member of the team at Church Militant. I know these people. I can get something like this going. I've already kind of talked to them a little bit about if you were to respond, what would you do? And most of them, and I mean the vast majority, all of them is that I can remember that I've talked to about it, have said a resounding yes to doing something like that. We can build something with you, and you don't have to take the embarrassment. You don't have to take the aggravation of listening to people denounce Holy Mother Church to your face or say bad things about it, or, take your paycheck from somebody who diametrically opposes your worldview or the worldview of your church. We have Catholics out there, professionals that do good work, if not better work than the people that you have on staff with you at the Daily Wire. And we can get something up and running whenever you're ready to say, I'm ready to walk out the door. You can do it, Matt. You can do it. Take my offer. I am very resourceful. I'm very powerful, and I'm a very good producer.
So there you go. You heard a little Trump there towards the end with Joe. I'm very powerful, very influential. Just come on by. I'm right here.
Yeah,
I heard it, man. But
your background's politics, media, and Catholicism. You can't help but know some people.
And I think it's something that needs to be said over and over again, because I think Catholics have done the worst job at actually locking arms in the media space, especially. We're more than happy to just take money from others just for the idea of access. When it's like, no, we have the talent, we have the resources,
Yeah.
and we have the ability to do so.
And even Nick Fuentes says that he says he would help try to get an angel investor to make that media project happen. Like nobody wants to see Matt Walsh at the Daily Wire anymore. We can see that it's wearing on him. And buddy, there's Catholics that can do the work that you need to get done on your own.
Yeah, it's wearing on us to watch it wear on you, Matt. Just to be completely honest, because we're all sitting there going like, yeah,
a mat for a mat, mat for a mat. They took our mat, we will take their mat.
That's right. All right, folks. On that note, that's going to end it here on the Barrett Breakdown. Joe, let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, guys, if you want to check out my content, you can go ahead and go to that YouTube search bar and type in Red Top Report. You can follow me on X at JendersII. That is Genders2. My name does just so happen to be a hate fact. I am Joseph Enders II. And you can also find me on Rumble. You can also find me on Instagram at Red Top Report or at Genders2.
All right, folks, that's it for the Barrett Breakdown. Real talk, as you can see. I hope you guys like this. If you do like this idea where we have spaces where people can talk and get ideas out, hit that subscribe button. Share this show with everybody you know. It's the best way to get this content out there. We will talk to you all next week. God bless and Viva Cristo Rey.